So EntreNetwork, welcome. I'm the host, Sydney Jackson, and I basically started this podcast to allow different entrepreneurs to just kind of listen in and get a feel for what it's like being an entrepreneur, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this podcast is kind of meant to serve as a knowledge base for different entrepreneurs. So with that, we want to get into kind of like the meat and potatoes of what success is for you, and all of these different things. The biggest thing that we'll kind of talk about is you being successful outside of the smaller city. So when I talked to you probably 2-3 weeks ago, it probably was like 2 months ago actually, when you were saying once you left Shreveport and then you went to the outskirts of Dallas, you became more successful. It opened up your eyes and stuff like that. So we'll definitely touch on all of that. The format of the podcast is going to be two parts. One is going to be kind of like the pre-interview that we'll just kind of use to get warmed up and have some really good sound bites of the different responses. And then the next section is going to be the actual podcast where we talk about the meat and potatoes. So if you want to kind of introduce yourself and then, where are you from? And then how did you get into the trucking business?
Hey, my name is Aiyana Anderson, Kirkendall now, and my company is She Swift Services, Successful Women in Freight Transportation. And I actually created my business about 5 or 6 years ago when I first started touching base with the transportation industry. Number one, there was just not enough women in the industry that were being recognized, although we were probably the arms behind the businesses being ran. And it just wasn't a lot of females in the hardcore part of the transportation, actually being the drivers, actually working at the warehouses. We weren't being recognized in a male dominated field. And so I just felt some kind of empowerment notion to start getting more involved in the transportation industry and bringing more women into the transportation industry. And I did start in Shreveport, Louisiana, and kind of in time and just other circumstances pressed me to have to get to a more resourceful location. And so I went to the next biggest thing, which was Dallas for me. And since I've been here, I've seen the growth. I was able to see the difference between a smaller sector versus a larger city and just the overall of how transportation operates. So
Neato,
here I am.
neato. I think
So
neato,
here I am.
neato. I think no, that's incredible. So for you right now, what is your definition of success? And do you feel you have reached that as an entrepreneur?
Um, honestly, I don't think I've met my highest level of success. I think what I have done is actually checked off my list the goals and accomplishments that I've made in my business as an entrepreneur. I still have a ways to go because I still have goals and I'm still trying to get more women into the industry and males. I just want to see an overall difference in the transportation industry. And so I still have goals that I need to meet, and I still have things that are still on my list. And so until I start getting, the rest of my list checked off, I'm successful as I go along. As long as I'm accomplishing the goals and my services are out there helping the industry, then I'm winning. And so is everybody else.
Indeed. With that, that's incredible. What what's the biggest way you actually market your business? Because you said you was in the industry or you started the business 4 or 5 years ago. What's the most actionable item that you have taken to kind of put yourself in positions for opportunities?
I'm so old school. You're this is like the rule of all rules. It's always going to be word of mouth. My biggest marketing is word of mouth. My biggest piece is someone saying, oh, do you know her? Oh, did you know they did this? Oh, did you know? again, people telling other people, telling other people, telling other people is like a real ritual for me in the trucking world. And I just say that for any business. You can tell someone, hey, I'm opening up a smoothie shop. That person tells their friend tells their friend, and now we're all at the smoothie shop, you know? So again, my word of mouth is like a big part of where my networking and my marketing is coming in at. People just putting my name out there. My son is a truck driver. He carries my cards and stuff, and he's putting it out there. And so word of mouth has been like one of my biggest platforms. My children actually had to tell me, Mom, you got to get on media. You got to get on media. And I'm like, I don't operate social media. You know, I'm not a social media, fan like that. But when I realized that that's where the rest of my customers or people that I'm trying to reach are, then I had to reverse and flip that platform and make it something that's usable for me to market out. So besides the word of mouth, I am using social media platforms to kind of educate people, put my services out there, just talk about the freight transportation industry in general.
Indeed. With that, absolutely. So word of mouth, yeah, that's how we actually got started as well. I remember when we was at the Office Hub together, and it was super slow for me as an individual because I was kind of new to it, and then word of mouth slowly started picking up, extremely slowly, right? But it's a really good marketing tool that you can have in your arsenal. And then, especially with social media, you can really take that to the next level and build your personal brand and then your business's brand. And then it just kind of takes off from there. But
We're so digital right now. Like,
we are.
I still have cards from 3 and 4 years ago, but who the heck uses this? I mean, you use your business cards, but you don't. We're so digital and electronic that, I can scan my contact as a digital card now. People can hit the website and see information now. So it's like, why am I passing out the business cards? Although I still have them, of course I'll hang them up and I'll post my flyers out there and whatnot. But in the world that we're coming into, everything is technology, digital based. But even now with us being in COVID, we're at home, we're on Zoom calls more. So I've had to figure out how to get across to people via calls, podcasts, things in that nature. So I always believe that in any business that we do, we have to be able to evolve where we're at in times. What we were doing 3 and 4 years ago in our businesses or as an entrepreneur may not work where we're going forward or may not work what we're doing at the moment. So we always have to be able to evolve in what our business is doing.
Absolutely. With that, so 4 or 5 years of evolution, pretty much constant improvement and getting it wrong a lot, probably, right? Um,
Ready to quit. Keep going.
Indeed. So I'm pretty sure it's like a lot of hills and valleys within that 4 or 5 year stretch, right? But right now, in a moment, are you enjoying what you're doing?
Right now, in the moment, I absolutely am enjoying what I am doing. I would not trade anything for it for the world right now. I believe when I left healthcare 5 years ago, maybe even just 3 years ago, because I was still operating my trucking company as I was exiting my healthcare career of 23 years. And so, even with that being said, I don't regret leaving. I totally feel where I'm at now, and I feel way more comfortable, way more confident in knowing what I'm doing now. So yes, I feel like I'm in a great place, even with the pandemic going on. I'm good.
Awesome.
Business is good. My business is good. We will survive.
Indeed, have to. I love to hear that. So that was kind of like the pre questionnaires or pre interview, which was really good content. Now we'll just kind of segment our way into the interview where I just kind of repeat the question of kind of tell me what you do. But first, I want to welcome you to the EntreNetwork podcast. Thank you for coming. So kind of tell us about yourself and why you actually got into entrepreneurship.
Okay, well, for the longest time, as I previously mentioned, I was in healthcare for 23 years. And I want to say it was a career that I got into for the stability and for the comfortableness. I was raising kids as a single mom at that time. And once you're in a career, you don't want to get out. You can't do that for the kids. You have to be stable. I remember being motivated to be in healthcare, but as it changed, I felt like that wasn't all I wanted to do in life. I never in a million years thought that I would be an entrepreneur, like actually owning my own businesses, and definitely not in the world of freight transportation, like something that was totally a male dominated field. And let me back up, not to sound like that, but a white male dominated field, even for my Caucasian sisters. Like, no, we're getting stepped on because everybody figured that the transportation industry had to be male dominated. So I never thought that I would be at this level in life, in this field, in this industry with my own business. No. So freight from medical care, definitely a major change and a major eye opener, but kind of gave me a little bit more motivation for my next journey in life, like my next, help the world kind of thing. So this is just a new door for me for the next 20 years.
Indeed. So, from your previous career, how did that actually translate to the transportation industry as far as like skill sets?
That, my skill set for customers and just always wanting to be a change or in the community, that has never changed. What I will say is in the healthcare industry, as it was changing, policies were changing, our city in Shreveport was changing.
Hmm.
And so I roughly hit layoffs, which surprised me because early on, everybody thinks, healthcare can't die out or that a hospital would never go away. But again, if you're not evolving with what the times are, things will die out, money will run out. I was laid off from 3 different hospitals. And so I had to start thinking of that exit plan. Hey, something's not working here. Am I at my top for healthcare? Is there anywhere else that I wanted to go in healthcare? No, there wasn't, because I kept getting shut down. And so it was just like, all right, God, are you telling me, let's change position here? And so when I got into freight, it was definitely a new ball game, but almost the same industry. You still had clients, you still had customers, you still had to deal with the people. There was still a need for things. And so I kind of just transitioned the skills that I already had over into how do I make the freight industry better? How do I make it better for customers? How do I make it better for shippers? How do I advocate for my drivers? How do I advocate for my women who want to come in this industry and don't have the resources to do so? And so I kind of just took that skill set to build up She Swift, which that's how we got to successful women in freight transportation. And so the shift shifted and here I am 4 years later, still doing what I need to do.
Wow. In our conversation previously, you touched a lot on advocating for women. When did that actually come about for you as a business owner? When did you know that you wanted to be an advocate for women, specifically in the transportation industry?
Well, what ended up happening is I thought I would get a lot of males replying and reaching out to me, when all reality, I had a lot of women reaching out to me. And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa, like I wasn't prepared for more women to be saying, oh, what do you do? How can I, I wasn't prepared. I thought more males would be like, oh, I want to come on, or I can do this. I got, but I had a lot more females reaching out to me saying, how did you do that? Like, What do you know? So that start putting me in the mind frame of, yes, I need to be able to show other women that this can be done, and that we do have a voice out here. I had agents who had worked in warehouses before and knew nothing about anything else. That was their only position, was the warehouse. The higher ups weren't letting them move up or down. And so that's a big problem in the freight industry. I had women coming to me asking how to become a truck driver. How can you get me in a program? Do you know which program I could take? How do I do this with having the children? So again, trying to make women more successful in this industry that we want to be in, that we think we can handle to be in, but we need the resources to do so. And I just want to be one of those vessels.
And I think you are absolutely that. That's incredible, Aiyana. With that, what's the lowest point you had in your business? At least something that you feel comfortable sharing, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, it's kind of like a lot of hills and valleys. So when it's on top, they feel like, okay, everything is good, and then you hit that period where it's just like everything is going wrong.
I will say the pandemic, it really hit hard at first just due to funding because everything froze. And so for me, I really was one of the entrepreneurs that saved my own personal monies and was putting it out there. I did not go to a bank at all. And don't get me wrong, for those, entrepreneurs who do end up at the banks, perfectly fine if you can support it, if you understand what you're signing, if you know when you're getting loans. For me, I did not. So banks terrified me. So I ended up saving a lot of my money to be able to put into my business. So my personal was turning into business, business turning into personal. And then you hit emergencies or pandemics. And then you're realizing that you're feeding money from your personal into your business till it's just one. That can deplete you. And I've been there already. Again, you will have those ups and downs, but I've literally have depleted down to where I had to stop using my personal coming into my business for financials. So if you're able to do grants, loans, things like that legitimately, then by any means have a way to back up yourself for capital and never mix your business with your personal. I could have lost at the time, not realizing it, but I put my whole house in jeopardy, not realizing that, oh my gosh, I'm feeding out of my personal just to make my business survive. But that's how hungry, that's how sacrificed you get sometimes for
Mm-hmm.
your businesses, that you literally take your personal and spend that into your business. And for sure, I've been there for rock bottom. Lack of words to say, like really getting down to the nitty gritty of what I had in bank accounts.
Yeah, that's super terrifying. I can only imagine, because with the pandemic, a lot of businesses were hit extremely hard. But it's really good to see that you was able to overcome that, and you're providing so much knowledge to different business owners so they wouldn't have to repeat that. So the educational piece, I really do love it. And yeah.
Scared of the banks. Don't be scared of the help. I really was scared. And that was just me being uneducated in banking and financials when you're being an entrepreneur. When you're first
Mhm.
coming into your own business, you're still trying to figure out your numbers or what things mean. And so that was just me being afraid to go and get the assistance. But if you need to reach out to a banker or accounting services, do so and make sure that you have your flows of money in the right places for emergencies or when we run into pandemics.
Mhm.
That would really shut your business down.
Indeed. And with that, as far as like being afraid of banks and stuff like that, it's a really good resource. The Small Business Development Center. They have a lot of good consultants across all 50 states that just kind of help you and prep you for that conversation with the bank. So they can just kind of review the financials and get you prepared to say, hey, you say this, or hey, you need to get this in order first, because it is scary kind of going to a bank asking for money, especially when you need it, right? A lot of a lot of good bankers, they say, "Hey, come to us when you don't need the money," and you're more likely to get approved. But
So true.
indeed. But as far as like the lowest point, what was the highest point that you felt? And not particularly in a sense of financials, but in a sense of probably like happiness and fulfillment as an individual within the business.
Highest points were just knowing, like once I got the business license and got the certifications,
Mhm.
those were like the highest points to me saying, you're in this. Like this is the business. You are certified. Like you got an EIN, girl. You know, those are my main highlights. Like you are having your own business. And once I start realizing after the people, I would train people for dispatch. I would train people to open their own companies. When I see them successful, that's my
Hmm.
highs right there. When they're calling
Mhm.
me like, oh, Miss A, I added another truck. Oh, Miss A, I got another dispatcher. Like those are my highs when I know the information that I put out there in the universe comes back with them telling me, hey, it worked. Hey, I'm in this now. Hey, you think you can help? You know, that's my high. So when I had those papers, I knew it was serious. Like you are a real
Mhm.
business owner and you have to take this seriously. I put my whole heart into a lot of the business that I do, to my trainings that I do, my mentorships, like my whole everything is in that. So that's like my geek tie. Just when people say, oh, you're She Swift, what does Swift stand for? Successful Women in Freight Transportation. Just to know that I've overcome the hump of even being a woman and a woman of color in transportation. Like I'm two flags on the field, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm a threat, I'm coming, you know what I mean? And I'm bringing a worldwide of women with
Indeed.
me.
It's always good to celebrate those victories of fulfillment within because, of course, entrepreneurship is just a rocky roller coaster. So it's really good to see that you have those high points and you celebrate them. And then those high points are not really tagged to money. It's tagged to the true fulfillment that you get from seeing other people succeed. That's incredible.
And I love their stories. I love when they call me. I love when they say, you was right, you know, or hey,
Mhm.
that did work. I mean, that's my highs. That means I know I gave the right information.
Indeed. So with Shreveport, you started the business in Shreveport, right? And then you're now in what is it? Outside of Dallas?
Yeah, I'm in a it's called Red Oak. It's just
Red Oak.
small outside town of Dallas, but it's really up and coming. I'm kind of down here by like the Waxahachie area. So it's kind of like on the outskirts of the inner city of Dallas. I
Mhm.
do commute to the inner city though, because that's where all my trucks are at. That's where freight is, a lot of warehousing, a lot of distribution. So I'm consistently going into the city just to maneuver, just to kind of see what's coming in and out of us, how many trucks are actually on the road, where are my trucks parked at, you know, just again, staying involved with what's happening around me. Is there land where we could build another truck stop, you know,
Mm-hmm.
things
Mhm.
like that. When I first started in Shreveport, I felt like it was such a smaller city that I thought it would be easier and quicker to grow a business. But for me, I was wrong because what my customer base is, I couldn't get a lot of that out of Shreveport, just Shreveport alone. We weren't large enough. When you're in the freight industry, you need to be around enough manufacturers, distributors, people who are just in transportation, period. And we just didn't have all those entities that I needed to get me growing at that time. And so, what I noticed when I got here to Dallas, because it was a lot larger with a larger network, I was more needed.
Mhm.
Versus me being in a smaller community where we're kind of just all, you know, everybody's kind of doing the same thing. So with me being in a larger city, my need base was more. So I think that's what allowed me to grow more and kind of grow at the pace that I was needing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I had a lot more manufacturers. I was able to network. Again, I'm more in your face. I'm knocking on doors. I'm showing up to businesses. Hey, you know, I'm here. I have services that could help. And so I had a lot more outreach here than what I did in Shreveport. Do I still do business with Shreveport? Absolutely, because that is where my root came from.
Mhm.
And so I will forever try to bring business and bridge business between the two. But I definitely just seen and had more opportunity come into a larger area.
No, that's incredible. With that, once you was in Shreveport, right? When did you, or once you was in Shreveport, did you see, or did it feel like a lot of opportunity, as far as like you been busy and before you was kind of aware of, okay, Dallas is kind of booming and I can be successful there? Because I think once you're kind of in it within a small community and you have blinders on, you can't really see the full potential of your business. So did you kind of experience that? And
I did. I kind of just, I wasn't even looking outside of Shreveport really because I was so gung ho on just building around our community, just building around Shreveport Bossier, just having truckers here and there and companies, but I wasn't seeing the bigger picture of the need that needed to come in through there. And as much as I tried, I just couldn't base it from there. It was like I could send the work into Shreveport, but I couldn't pull it out. So I had to take off the blinders and actually look at bigger areas. What am I missing in my business? Okay, these shippers, where are they coming from? And when I start doing the research, they were coming from larger cities. And so it was like, okay, let me try something. And I did. I thought I would already be back to Shreveport, but I'm not. 3 years later, I'm still gone. And that's only because I was able to grow from here. I really thought that I would get out here and it'd be too large of a scale. But actually, for freight transportation, this was the perfect scale for me. Shreveport was too small to scale the way that I needed.
hmm. So what was the biggest change going from Shreveport to Red Oak?
Oh my gosh, traffic, people. I just felt like we're so used to each other in Shreveport, Bossier. Like you'll kind of see the same people a couple times a week, or we'll go to the same areas. It was so large here that it took me like a year to even get to the other sides of areas that I probably needed to get to. So the large proximity was a big deal for me. Like I'm used to getting somewhere in 10 to 15 minutes, can get to a business meeting to where now I'm planning an hour at a time, at some times. But for me, the biggest change was just also, I'll say too, is I am a little bit more accepted here. I don't know why, or maybe just because it's such a larger city with a little bit more diversity that I'm not, when I come through their doors, they're not surprised to see me. They're not surprised to see a female coming through. So that was a big change for me. Acceptance, that's what I'll say. So besides the traffic and just the larger proximity, the acceptance here versus there.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I never heard that one before. As far as like moving to the bigger city, I know it's a lot more diversity, but I don't really know too much about what it's like, the atmosphere. Of course, you can see the business opportunities within it, but just the overall feel of the people in a sense. And the last time that we met, you said something about opening up different possibilities, not just within the business, but your mindset. Your mindset, it kind of changed and shifted as you was exposed to a different walk of people, pretty much, because you have people from New York, California, pretty much around the U.S., along with different countries. So, kind of talk more about that.
Yes, it did. Again, when you think of trucking, people always think of, the big guy in a truck, and so I'm working with so many different cultures now that are in the freight industry. And I feel like we can learn from them. Everybody's cultures are different, and they all take trucking and transportation differently too. I have some truckers that I work with that are from Kenya. I have some that are from India. And what I enjoy is our work ethics. Everybody has a different work ethic. And for people who are of different cultures and not just Americans, their ethics are really strong. And I like that. So it's been nice to just learn other ethnicities and just see the other people in trucking in general, even behind the truck and in the office buildings. I've walked into, other companies and yeah, they might be Asian, but they're in trucking, but they got the best fruit and vegetables going on the truck. You know what I mean? So you
Mhm.
meet just like a lot. And the other part is the locals here support us smaller trucking companies. So if you have farmers trying to get in products, they rather call the smaller companies. So again, the acceptance of everybody knowing that we're really all in this industry together, no matter if we're from Cali, Florida, Kenya, that we're really trying to bridge it on one page has been nice. That feeling has been nice to feel that we're not in always such a competition all the time.
Mhm.
And for me, like I hadn't really just mentioned this, but in one of my business plans first on, I stated that I wanted a school. And in this school, so that it would have the ability to cater to a few different people, a few different people's schedules. There's trucking schools and freight schools everywhere, but they're not necessarily getting all the information, all the training. So it would be nice to experience that, and get this in a training where we all understand curriculums, where we all understand freight, Kenya people over here, just whatever. But that's kind of in my long-term version of having some kind of educational institute where I could put out those services.
Wow. No, that sounds incredible. And I'm super excited to kind of talk more about that because, well, to the listeners, we are doing your website. So we're in the process of redesigning that and then talking more about the educational side of it and just being a resource to different people who want to get into the transportation industry. So that's extremely exciting. With that, your personal journey from the last 4 to 5 years, and probably even before that, what would you change, if anything, with the knowledge that you kind of knew today?
What would I change on my personal
Hmm.
journey? You know, I would go to that bank. I would go to that bank. No, um, you know what? To be honest, I don't think I would change a thing because I loved healthcare. I was in healthcare 23 years. I loved it, but I think I outgrew it. So, which kind of allowed me to transpire and transfer into a new energy or into a new industry that I actually enjoy. Personally, I feel like I did it right in time. I'm not getting any younger. And so where I was at that last layoff, it kind of opened the door for me to go and grow. And so personally, I think I was right on time to start my entrepreneurship. My children were all of age, done with school. So if I had to eat ramen noodles for a week, ramen noodles and me was friends. The sacrifices that I was able to do just for self and not have to feel like I had the children on the line as well. So personally, I feel like I did this just right in the nick of time. And had I completely just even bombed at business, heck, I got time to go back to work. So in my mind, I was very set up on, no, we're going to step out on faith and actually do this. I even think my transition from moving Shreveport to Dallas, I think that was actually timed at the right time. Even with us hitting the pandemic, I was only there 6 months and we were locked down. And so I'm like, okay, no work and you're an entrepreneur. So, I mean, there was some real points where I was just like, you gotta keep going. And
Mhm.
so my kids, another personal PowerPoint was them pushing for them. These days, we're talking about not just leaving your kids money behind, but we're trying to leave some legacies behind. We're trying to leave some things behind that they can continue and to keep carrying on as well. And so I had to keep pushing. I had to keep pushing. I had to keep pushing. And they were personally on the team. So if you have the support behind you, that was another a good personal for me, having support. I wouldn't have been able to make it here, I don't think at all. So all that aligns. So personally, on the personal journey, I probably wouldn't have changed a thing. I think it was all in due timing and all in the right time, and me just making the steps that I needed to make. Not being afraid to do so, because entrepreneurs, we can't be afraid. We have to do it scared. And I think me doing it and a little fearful of things, I just did it. And here I am. So I don't think I would change personally what I did at all.
Indeed, execution. You have to execute no matter what, because if you're scared, that's normal. But with it, you still have to push forward and get past it. And it becomes a learning experience because you can either fail or succeed. But either way, it's gonna allow you to learn quickly and then just kind of do it again and again in a sense. But as far as entrepreneurship, what's the biggest thing that you wish you would have knew before you got started?
What do I wish I would have known? Man, before I got started, to be ready and don't quit so easily. I wish I would have just had more mentors in my ear, honestly. I wish I would have had more mentors in my ear telling me, hey, don't give up, don't quit. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough.
Hmm.
Because I had those moments, but I had to figure out how to breathe those out. I had to figure out my own tools and own ways to decipher how to keep going, how to keep pushing, because everybody won't be a cheerleader for you, you know? But I wish people would have told me, hey, get yourself a mentor, someone who's going to be a positive vibe to you, who's going to help you nurture what you're, going through, help your business grow a little bit. I wish I would have had that. I also wish I would have had a little bit more. Again, we use the resources that you have. We had SBA, I had, other resources that I could have used. Use your resources that you have out there, and that will help you get to where you're going in your business. At first, I didn't use my resources, and now I am. And I tell myself this all the time: darn it, Ayala, should have just did this from the beginning. Should have just did. I just said it to myself the other day in reference to funding. Darn it, I knew that. I should have did that from the beginning. So use your resources that you have out there. SBA offers business plans, business coaching. Use the resources that you have so that you know how to articulate your business. You may have a vision, but that may not be how it can go right away. So get the assistance, reach out for help. It's okay to ask for help.
Indeed, always. I use as many resources as possible. One, because you need someone to kind of talk to as far as like mentorship, right? Because when I first got started, I reached out to what's seen as competitors, marketing agencies across the state, because just being so young and so you don't know what you don't know in a sense. Um, you have to and build those relationships and really just kind of seek that knowledge out because if you're leaning on just yourself, of course you can go to school and you can do research and stuff like that, but hard life experiences, people really love to kind of talk about it. So find a mentor as soon as possible, no matter what journey you are in business. If you're new or if you're kind of seasoned, you can always learn something from someone. But what's the biggest resources you used or top three resources you used to help you grow your business? And that can be pretty much like an organization, a person that really was a creative bounce board to you as far as like going after opportunities, or it may be like a spouse or a kid that's just kind of pushed you or act as a motivational element to your entrepreneurial journey.
I am, now that everybody showed me how to get on Instagram, I am a huge follower of a lady named Sheree Moore. She is with She Trucking. And she was one of the first women of color that kind of put us out there. And she is a huge mentor. There is so many companies that I follow and tap into their Facebook pages where I can get, tidbits. They tell us our updated rules for the industry, things like that. But She Trucking was one of my number ones that I follow. and speak with her and get in her groups to get that knowledge. I always try to stay connected to any business that's doing the same services I am, because they're really not my competition. You know what I mean? We're in this together. And so we can teach each other a thing or two.
Indeed.
Also, my father, who has been in logistics 30 years, government, U.S. Air Force, I always run things by him, ask things. How do you think this sounds? Do you think, from his point of view, where he may see it from a government side, or just being the outside looking in, because he's not necessarily sitting in my business, but he could be a potential customer. So from a customer's view, what do you think? Things in that nature. And I always stay connected. For me, because I'm in freight, I stay connected with like FMCSA and our DOT regulatories. Those are where the freight people tell us what to do per se. So I consistently stay in touch with the newsletters and things like that, just so that I'm able to stay up on my knowledge of the trucking industry and freight, so that I can tell my drivers and my carriers and my agents so that we're compliant on things. So I try to stay in the loop of what my industry has going on. So I definitely reach out for articles and sign up with newsletters and things to keep me informed, of things that are going on. I'm a bookworm, so I like to read, get the knowledge in there. Even if I'm just listening to a podcast or listening to something, it's still feeding me for what I need. But for mentorship, I try to check into that kind of stuff at least once a week, get a hearsay here and there, even if it's with just my agents that are within the company. If we can bounce off each other or just vent, that works for me.
Indeed. It's so many resources out there, and I love that you're a bookworm. I have gotten into it a lot lately myself. I wish I would have gotten into it earlier, because it's just a wealth of knowledge. And I find myself reading a lot about just like overall marketing, leadership, branding, building the business, systematizing. It's a lot of different things that I need knowledge on and wisdom on. So the books act as some kind of foundation for that. And then I have open conversations with individual people, just to kind of fill in the gaps and really get that wisdom from people. So no, that's incredible. It's always good talking to people.
Always good talking to people, always a face-to-face. I have a session tomorrow, and these people are coming in from Shreveport, actually. And I have a session with them tomorrow, and it's always good to talk face-to-face. Like, I've talked to them 1,000 times on and over Zoom, and now we're going to meet up tomorrow. So it's going to be a great brainstorm session.
Indeed. So someone getting into your industry, or someone trying to grow within your industry, what would you tell that person?
What would I tell that person? Research first before you start. Gain all the knowledge that you can and make sure of the direction that you're going to in transportation. There's so many different areas that we're needed or that could just help the transportation in general. So research the areas and choose what your niche is going to be and go for that. Whether you want to come in as dispatch, broker, a driver, or doing the back office, there's so many compartments to freight. So that's why I say research the area that you really want to touch base in and do your homework on it. And that will let you know how to set yourself up for it. Whether you need to purchase a dispatch class or a freight broker class, or whether you just might need to go take a couple of business classes at the college and be okay.
With that, what about people who kind of feel discouraged? So they already started the trucking company, but it's a lot of it's more valleys than it is hills in a sense. So what would you tell that person?
Don't quit. Keep going, because right now in trucking, we are at the ultimate highest level of trucking right now. We are in such a demand that the work is there. It's just a matter of putting your processes in place. Go back to your drawing boards to where you first originally said what your plan was going to be for this in trucking, and try to re-sketch out. Like I said, we have to evolve with what's happening with our times right now. So what we thought might have was going to work for us before may not work for us right now. So just go back to the drawing board and see where you're at and see how to rework what's not working for you. You may have to change your process. You may have to change some systems in order for you to keep going now, where we're at now. So
And
that's what I would say.
indeed, systems are extremely important. Yeah, we're working on a lot of different workflows within revision, workflows on like events, on website design, on social media management. It's just a lot of overall workflows that we're working on and systematizing it, right? So, of course, the people are the foundation to the business, but organization is super important to really be able to scale a business up. And with that, no, it's super exciting. And any business that's looking forward to just kind of like automating different processes, just be sure to write as much of it down as possible. Because as far as like entrepreneurs, I think we find ourselves
Or
doing a lot of the work in a sense, and it's just kind of repeated work. So with that, it's still a lot of things that you have to do as the business owner, such as taxes, unless you outsource it, hopefully, right? Um, but you also have to bring business into the business in a sense. So you wear a lot of different hats, and as soon as you can systematize stuff or actually write it down so you can show other people how to do it, the sooner you can kind of do those additional things. Because as far as like entrepreneurship, I don't think, at least for me anyway, I don't think I'll ever be not busy in a sense. I'll systematize as much as possible, but it's always going to be more to kind of do in a sense. So you get this stuff off your plate, but you pick this up and it just continues in a sense. Um,
I'm definitely not sitting behind some desks with my feet kicked up. Entrepreneurship is definitely not that.
no,
It's
it's a lot of learning, a lot of learning, a lot of failing.
a lot of work in there. That's one of my quotes too. We have to do the work, in order to get, successful or to get our goals accomplished in our businesses. We definitely have to put in the leg work to get there. It doesn't just come and fall on your lap. You got to get up and you got to do the work. And systems help us get the work done.
Indeed. So no, this was an awesome interview. I want to end it off with one quick question. So what would you actually tell your 15-year-old self as far as entrepreneurship?
My 15-year-old self, I would tell my 15-year-old self to do it, to go for where your heart is taking you. Do not be afraid to come outside of your box. Do not get trapped into society saying that we have to work these 8 to 5 jobs and that you can make everybody else rich. I would tell my 15-year-old self not to give up and to just keep pushing and that it can be done. It can be done outside of the scope of people telling us that we can't do something or do something or be an entrepreneur. It can be done. That's what I would tell my 15-year-old self. Because again, at 15, I would have never thought at 45 that I would be an entrepreneur and once again in freight transportation. I can remember wanting to be a pilot as a young girl. I wanted to go into the Air Force and be a pilot. And it's so sad to say, but I was told that I couldn't do that because I was a female. That crushed me then. And I never thought about dreaming so big because I thought we were supposed to be in the office. I thought we were supposed to be housekeepers. I thought as a woman, we were supposed to be in healthcare. These were all the things that were in my environment telling me that I can't dream this big. So I would go back and tell my 15-year-old self to dream as big as you want to dream and then do it afraid, do it hard, and do it the best that you can do, and you won't be disappointed. Again, even if my business wasn't successful, I would still be proud enough in myself to know that I tried it.
Indeed. Incredible. Wow. Wow. And I can see and hear the passion for women advocacy. I did not say that word right, but advocating for women pretty much because that's where it actually started, right? And not having access to that or not seeing that it was actually possible. No, that's wow. inspiring.
Saying what we couldn't do growing up. The teachers would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" There was a lot of times that I could see girls in the class, we would just be saying the same things because that's what we seen our mothers do, our grandmothers do. It was the same. Like no one ever said that we could be a truck driver. No one ever said that we could be a welder. No one ever said that we can be in construction. Right now, I was recently in touch with a lady who does housing development out here in Texas, and she's actually from Baton Rouge. She's from Louisiana, but she owns her own construction company. She makes a lot, and so, but who would ever thought you would see a woman in construction? Like she knows how to cut the wood, measure, literally put the housing plans and the development together. But we were never told that growing up that it was okay to
Wow.
do so. And so I always challenge people to do what people tell us that we cannot, male or female.
Indeed. Indeed. Wow. Thank you so much for coming to the EntreNetwork. This was incredible. Um, yeah.